Hi guys, back with another new game coming to the Mega Drive / Sega Genesis. Super exciting. This one's called The Cursed Knight, aka TCK, and Broke Studio kindly sent this over, as well as some other goodies like a bag and a coaster and some stickers. Thanks to them for sending it over. They also first sent me a ROM, and it was a customized ROM for On a Retro Tip for my channel, which was really awesome. But then this came and the cart has that on as well. So this is actually a customized cart just for my channel. Really cool, and I'll show you guys a bit of that later. Anyway, we're going to jump straight in and do the usual. I'm going to quickly show you the inside of the box and what's in there in the manual, and then we're going to have a look at the game.
The presentation of the box is pretty good. I like the artwork, although I'm not sure I'm 100% sold on the font choice, and it's reversible, so you can have either this style or a more classic Mega Drive look. The cart has the same artwork on the label. The manual is very well printed and quite short, being split in half between English and French. It highlights the premise of the story, briefly explains the stages, the controls and the gameplay modes, and heads-up display. Good quality with nice glossy paper. The Cursed Knight is a hybrid of scrolling shooter and platforming run and gun. You're playing as a futuristic genetically enhanced knight called Calder that looks like half knight and half robotic ninja. Set in the future, the story is basic in premise, so there's not really much point in me spoiling it here, but it follows the usual hero tropes. The story has some very dark twists and dialogue at times though. It also pokes fun at the industry in general, with references to video game collectors and even Paprium, with an enemy called Fonz and the Daytonmeister being mentioned. It also has a fair few F words, which seems to be common of Mega Drive indie games lately, and to be honest seems unnecessary. The game itself can be played in 3 modes: normal, old school and insane. Normal is your standard mode with infinite lives. You can die as many times as you want and just try again from the last checkpoint. Old school gives you 3 lives and 2 continues. Ha, good luck with that. And insane gives you 1 life only. The manual states that this mode is ideal for speedrunners, but I'd be amazed if anyone could beat the game on old school, let alone insane. After each level, it tells you how long you took to beat the level and how many lives you lost, then grants a score based on these metrics. Some levels I died a lot of times. It's described in the manual as a die and retry game, so that gives you an idea of what you're up against. You'll likely die many times trying to beat this, but you just keep trying again. You're probably aware of a few games like this, with Super Meat Boy usually being the go-to mention, but 2 of my personal favourites, Hotline Miami and Shovel Knight, are quite good examples of the die and retry style. The thing with those games is that the line between challenging and downright frustrating is a fine one, and I think the Cursed Knight is dangerously straddling that line at times, maybe even stepping over it. There were points that had me screaming at the screen in frustration, especially some of the trickier platforming sections that were very unforgiving. There are 2 different control schemes to choose from, but I went with the standard 3-button scheme, despite the fact that I was actually using a 6-button pad. It just seemed easier to grasp. Controls vary depending on whether you're in a platforming / run and gun or scrolling shooter section. When platforming, A shoots, B is jump, and C cycles through your weapons. When in shoot 'em up mode, A shoots left, B shoots right, and C again cycles weapons. In either mode you can hold down C, which fills up this special attack meter, and releasing sends out a large but slow attack. The number of these available is indicated by the skull icon next to it. When platforming you can double jump with B, which is essential, and timing said jumps can mean the difference between progressing and dying. Holding down crouches, and pressing B while crouching performs a slide, which can be handy for avoiding hazards or accessing tight spaces. The weapons you start off with are a standard shot that fires white orbs, and a homing attack looking like shuriken. Later you can obtain a 3rd weapon, a laser, which is more powerful, and a sword for close quarters attacks. The sword doesn't have to be selected, the knight will whip it out whenever an enemy is near enough to use it. The other 3 weapons are selected using the C button, and the red dot above the 3 weapon slots at the top right indicates the weapon currently equipped. Switching between these on the fly can be absolutely essential, as some situations are more suited to a specific shot type. You can also upgrade your shot by collecting these P power-ups, but the weapons can only be upgraded once. The homing shot changes colour and becomes more powerful, and the laser and standard shot change to 3 projectiles instead of 1. Collecting one of these power-ups will upgrade all shot types at once, so you don't have to upgrade each weapon individually. Other collectibles include skulls for extra special attacks, hearts to restore 1 point of health, and these crystals. You start off with 3 hearts, so you die after 3 hits. There's room for a 4th heart, and the manual screenshots show 4, so I'm guessing that collecting 3 of the crystals gives you an extra heart. I actually never collected a 3rd crystal during my playthrough, so I'm only assuming this is the case. Kinda wish I'd looked harder for them, as having a 4th heart would have made a huge difference. After a while, a new gravity mechanic is introduced to the gameplay. This lets you reverse gravity by pressing up on the D-pad, so you can walk upside down on platforms. This is quite fun, but makes for some absolutely punishing platforming sections that require precise timing and quick thinking. I'll show you one section now that took me probably in excess of 100 attempts. You can hopefully get a feel from that of how all the platforming controls come together. Precisely timed double jumps, plus reversing the direction of gravity at just the right moment. Manoeuvres like jumping off of a moving platform, then reversing gravity to land on the other side of said platform are very tricky indeed, and not something I've seen in a game before. So it's hard, but feels quite fresh in terms of ideas. This is somewhere that I wish I'd used the alternate 6-button control scheme. The problem with having up on the D-pad as the gravity control means that it's very easy to press it accidentally. A lot of places, particularly boss fights, reversing gravity will instantly kill you when you hit the top of the screen. Because you're often quickly pressing left or right to move, it's easy to accidentally nudge up. I died so many times because of this, and it can be so infuriating when you're finally making good progress on a boss, only to accidentally send yourself flying up the screen to your death. The 6-button control scheme uses the X button for this instead, which is way better, so if you're starting out with the game then I do recommend using a 6-button layout. Or you can use the mode button, leaving X, Y and Z for directly selecting the 3 weapons, which is again better than cycling through them with C. After playing for many hours, I realised that the manual explicitly recommends this and states that the 3-button layout will be harder to master. So there's an advert for reading your manuals, kids. The whole gravity reversal mechanic takes a bit of getting used to, but it's quite rewarding when you get the hang of it. Shooter sections are usually scrolling automatically. You know the score, it's your standard side-scrolling shooter affair. Quite basic, but fun nonetheless. The level design throughout is good. There's good use and variety of colour, varied environments with tons of little details in the background and foreground, and lashings of good old parallax scrolling. The custom cart and ROM they sent me even has billboards with my logo on during the first level. How cool is that? Levels are either scrolling shooter, platform run and gun, or a combination of both where you switch between these modes on the fly simply by setting foot on a surface. There are hazards to avoid in addition to enemies, and there are the usual platform game staples like moving platforms and platforms that fall away after being touched. Levels have these checkpoints throughout that vaguely look like the checkpoint poles from Sonic but adorned with skulls, so you're not reset back too far if you die, but even then it's difficult to pass some sections. The enemies are okay, although don't feel particularly original, but some of the bosses look fantastic with bold chunky design. Enemies are either ground based or flying with different behaviours and some fire projectiles. The regular platforming and shooter gameplay is broken up at one point with a motorbike section, which is quite a welcome change and pretty fun. It starts off side on with the screen forcibly scrolling. Enemies come at you from all sides and you can angle your cannon in any direction to shoot them. Jump launches your bike into the air to avoid road level obstacles. This section was really fun and I absolutely love the look of the futuristic motorbike, reminding me of something from Akira. You then transition to a third-person view akin to Super Hang-On. This was simpler, just involving dodging oncoming vehicles and shots without attacking. Then finally it's back to the side-on perspective for a boss fight, and I must say I did enjoy this one as it was something different to the rest. Boss fights in general are pretty fun and for the most part are very well balanced. Learning the attack patterns takes a few attempts, but once you learn them you can lick the boss pretty efficiently and get a sense of accomplishment from doing so. It's true of most of the game actually. The most frustrating parts of the gameplay give you the greatest sense of achievement once you finally beat them. At the time of writing I'm actually stuck on one of the stage 4 bosses, because sometimes in the level you'll get more than one boss, and for the life of me I cannot see how I'm going to beat it. It seems insanely hard. There are 5 stages in all, shown on a map in space between levels, then a final boss, so I must be around 80% of the way through the game. And this leads to the single biggest gripe I have with the Cursed Knight, the lack of a save feature. This game isn't short, especially considering the sheer number of times I'm dying and restarting. Thankfully the checkpoints mean I'm never being reset too far, but I can't save the game, nor is there a password feature to continue from a particular level. In 2022 this just seems ridiculous. In the few days I was playing this for the review I had to leave my Mega Drive switched on with the game paused like it's 1993, extremely annoying. If the developers are watching this, please try to implement some kind of save or password feature before the game is widely released. Okay, so I'm updating this after having spoken to Broke Studio. Seemingly the final release will indeed include a password save feature. You won't get the true ending if you use it, you'll need to do it in one sitting, and that true ending will also have a time limit in which you'll need to complete the game. But at least a password save feature will be implemented. Good to know. The Cursed Knight has a great soundtrack, from more chilled music to fast-paced beats and absolutely thumping bass that borders on Mega Drive drum and bass. The pacier music was especially accomplished for the system and really got the necessary adrenaline pumping for the trickier sections. All in all, Cursed Knight is a great game. Admittedly, I wasn't sure on it at first. It seemed a bit shallow during the first few minutes, but when that difficulty ramps up and the other gameplay mechanics come into play like the gravity, it makes for an extremely challenging game. I haven't beat it yet, but I'll certainly be going back to try. I'd say if you have absolutely no patience for this kind of thing, maybe avoid this one, but difficulty is nothing new to the good old Mega Drive. To be honest, my patience isn't abundant either, but I really enjoyed replaying sections time and time again in order to finally beat them. The Kickstarter campaign for physical copies of The Cursed Knight has just gone live and is linked below, so if this looks like something you're interested in, then head on over. Thanks again to Broke Studio for sending this over, and I'll leave you with a bit of gameplay. Thanks for watching.